Hi there, I'm Dean Jurek, and welcome to ACM Chemistry's Concrete 101. These are a series of short videos, about 15 minutes or so, that are designed to help you learn a little bit more about what goes on inside your plant.
So, what does go on in that plant with the silos? Let us walk you through some of the fundamentals of concrete technology. Topics like aggregates, mixed designs, cements, pozzolans, admixtures, and even efflorescence. We will get a bit technical, but don't panic. We'll have some famous experts to help us through.
I'm Dr. Emmett Brown, the Diamond Jim Reel here, your gambling man. Roger Raincloud, your neighborhood weatherman. Hi there, boys and girls. It's Mr. Dodgers here.
So ACM Chemistries, that's a hard act to follow. Thank you so much for your sponsorship of our industry, a valuable long-term sponsorship, and thank you for what you've done to make this week available. Good day to everyone. I know it's morning some places, afternoon some places, so we'll just say good day. My name's Rocky Jenkins. I'm your moderator for this session. Session that is themed Block to the Future Post-COVID-19. So before we begin, I have a few housekeeping items that I'd like to take care of. And these first two are very important for our attendees relative to your participation in this session. And I purposely want to overemphasize how much we want you to be involved. So first, the platform that we're using today is Adobe Connect. In that platform, all attendees, when you enter, will be muted. And your way to interact with us today during this session is by using the Q&A box. And so on your screen, you should see a box that says Q&A. And at the bottom of that box, there's a little dialogue section that you can type in your questions. I really want to emphasize we have a great panel of speakers, some very relevant information, so we do want you to ask questions. So I'd like very quickly for all of our attendees, I want you to practice using that Q&A dialogue box. So two questions. What was your favorite session from yesterday? And or if you weren't part of yesterday, what session are you looking forward to the most today? So if you could go to your Q&A dialog box and type in your favorite session from yesterday and or the session that you're looking most forward to today. So awesome. I see those questions coming in. So thank you. That's how you use the Q&A, and we encourage all of you to do that throughout the day. The other thing I want to thank you for is Bob Thomas did not know I was going to do that little test. So he gets the pleasure of reading those and deleting them before we get to the end of our session, Q&A session. So thank you for helping me give Bob something to do for the next half hour. The next screen is we have a very extraordinarily capable staff member, Randy Hertzberg. So you see her information on your screen. I would like to ask everyone, if you will, to please jot down Randy's name on a piece of paper, jot her cell phone number down, and jot her email address down. The reason for that is she's there to help you throughout this session, and you're not going to see this screen again. So if you haven't written that down, you've lost your ability to get in touch with Randy. She's also available, I told you she's very capable. She's also available after the conference to help with block machines that are broke down and some of those other kind of things. She's just absolutely awesome. So thank you, Randy, for helping us out. Transparency housekeeping item, this session is being recorded, and so by participating in this meeting, you're consenting to be recorded. We also have antitrust. NCMA has an antitrust policy and NCMA's anti-harassment policy. So we want to abide by those today. Both of those are available on NCMA's website for review as needed. Lastly, I want to thank, as we did ACM, I want to thank our sponsors for their support of this week. This is a new experience for NCMA with a virtual meeting, and our associates have really stepped up big time. And so please be sure to look at the names on the screen, but to also visit NCMA's Midyear event website and take a look at all of these sponsors and help support their businesses. All right. Let's introduce our session today. I've been very excited for some time at the panel of guest speakers that we have today. So just a quick overview of what we'll be covering. COVID-19 is literally infecting all of our lives right now. So what does that mean for the future, and particularly our industry's future? So these experts with us today will be giving us some insight into 3 different areas of our professional and personal worlds going forward post-COVID-19. So we'll be getting an economic look from Pierre Villerier, a construction outlook from Jen Goodman, and societal changes review by Tom Morris. Again, and I want to emphasize this, we'll be taking questions. You can put your questions in throughout any of these sessions. And at the end of today's session, we've allotted some time to have our panelists all on the screen and to address as many of those questions as possible. So without further ado, to get us started, I'd like to introduce Pierre Villerier. Pierre is the president and senior managing partner of Allen Villerier Partners, an investment banking firm with a national practice in the construction materials industry, with a focus in the construction materials industry, specifically in ready-mix concrete, aggregates, concrete products, and asphalt. Pierre will discuss what COVID-19 is doing to the economy and what we can expect coming out of it. Welcome, Pierre.
Thank you, Rocky. I'm going to go through this presentation. I have 20 minutes, and we have a lot of ground to cover. So with that, I'm just going to get started. Likewise, we think it's important to restate the antitrust policy of the association, and this presentation, my presentation, abides by all of that. So let me start with an introduction here. What does the general economy and the subset of the construction economy in particular hold for us over the next couple of years? In June, we believed we saw a clear path to recovery with gains in the stock market after the late March rout signaling clear sailing ahead. Major economic research firms were predicting a drop-off in COVID-19 cases by July, but that second wave has decimated that prediction. Here's the current situation. This is what one of the major firms predicted on May 21st. There would be 3 to 8 million confirmed U.S. infections. New infections would peak in May. I'm sorry, I'm just having a little. New infections would peak in, infections would abate by July. We know that is not the case. and we would have a 1.5% fatality rate and a 10% hospitalization rate. And a little more than 60 days later, here is the reality. After the U.S. recorded the first COVID-19 case on January 21st, it took 14 weeks for 1 million Americans to be infected. Just 6 weeks later, that number jumped to 2 million. Another 4 weeks later, it was 3 million. Just 2 weeks after that, the country hit a new milestone, 4.3 million cases nationwide as of late July. Here is really just a graph. It may be a little difficult to see, but you can see where the cases peaked, and this is where all the optimism was back here in late June. And as we all recall, there was quite a bit of press associated with the July 4th holiday weekend and all of the lack of social distancing that occurred in beaches and so forth. And sure enough, here's this trend line here as the death rates are continuing to rise. The projection in late May of a 1.5% fatality rate, or 120,000 deaths based on the high end of the estimate, has already been surpassed and is on a trajectory that is still climbing with no end in sight. There were 7,631 deaths in the week ranging from July 24th to July 30th, a 27.1% increase over the previous 7 days. And deaths are currently at 156,000 and on a run rate of 1,000 per day. The outlook for Latin America and Asia is equally disturbing, with only Europe appearing to be under control. Second spikes are occurring on almost every continent around the world. So here's an interesting graph. This deep blue is Europe, and you can see what a good job Europe has done, because this is a very narrow band. They've got it under control. This is Latin America and the Caribbean. As you can see, that blue is expanding. Likewise, you see North America, that's us, that's the United States and Canada. That is also expanding. And then the last, of course, is Asia, and they are also having some difficulties. So Africa, as a smaller continent population-wise, is doing better, but also within its own, head count is also expanding somewhat, not as much as others. What does all this mean for the economic outlook? As recently as late May, we had confidence the pandemic was waning and hot summer weather would eradicate it. The second spike causes us great concern. We think there is one word to describe the economic outlook: uncertainty. What does all this mean for the economic outlook? All we can do is monitor indicators that will drive our recovery, and watching those road signs will signal that the headlights are pointing uphill. What is the biggest single metric to monitor? It is consumer sentiment. The American consumer represents 70% of our nation's entire gross domestic product, or GDP. As I like to say when I do these presentations around the country, the American economy is built on the shoulders of the man or the woman pushing that shopping cart through Walmart and buying those new vehicles at the local dealerships. They represent 70% of all of our GDP. Remember that consumer sentiment is self-fulfilling. And my wife says she's going to put this on my tombstone. She's heard me say it so many times. But consumer sentiment really is self-fulfilling. If we feel good about ourselves, then we start spending and the entire economy moves in the right direction. If we are feeling poorly about ourselves, we tend to lock up our wallets, close our doors, and not circulate. So as I'm saying, if the consumer feels good about the outlook, they open their wallet and their spending drives the majority of the economy. So here's a graph that shows where we were in July of 2019. There are two consumer sentiment surveys. One is done by the University of Michigan. The other is done by the Conference Board. This is the University of Michigan's numbers. It was 98.4 in July of 2019, and it dropped to, and interestingly, in February of 20, it was at 101, and it has dropped to 72.5. If we continue on here, you can see this much more graphically in this chart. So you can see what happens here as we get into the month of March and this precipitous decline. Then things, again, at the end of June, we start feeling better because cases were coming down. And then as the second spike has emerged, we see the consumer confidence has dropped again. So this is the monthly data that goes back to 2010, and you can see here. You can see 2011. We had a dip here. We were at the depths of the recession at that time, and then of course it continued to climb. We see some periods here in 15 and 16 and 17 where the economy was strongly recovered, and certainly in 18 and 19, and then all of a sudden we fall off a cliff again in the first 4 or 5 months of 2020. This is the Conference Board's numbers. Their scale is a little different, but in July, a year ago, or could say August, you'll see that the numbers were in the 135 range as an average. In February, they're at 132. In July of this year, they're down to 92. But that's after taking a jump up to 98 in June when we thought things were getting better. And again, they've got a very, very similar slide, and you can see this uptick here in the month of June when cases were starting to fall, and then the famous July 4th holiday, all the reinfections and sentiment contract. What else should we look for? Pay attention to the following indicators. Stimulus legislation from Washington, trend lines in unemployment claims, interest rates, especially home mortgages. We're having a little delay here in new housing permits and starts, very important indicator. Existing home sales, overall construction indicators. Sorry, folks, this having a delay, an internet delay in the response, I think, on these. And Wall Street indexes and private equity investing. Those are all, and then most importantly, the rollout of a reliable COVID-19 vaccine. That is probably the single most important factor that will change consumer sentiment and will start changing the outlook for our economy. Okay, stimulus legislation. If you all saw the news this morning, there's no news. As of yesterday, and certainly as of this morning, Congress has not reached an agreement on further stimulus. And from what we've been able to discern this morning, they're still pretty far apart. They have claimed, after a week of 24/7 negotiations, the two parties cannot come to a meeting of the minds. This morning they announced they hope to have an agreement by the end of the day on Friday, and then they would vote on it early next week. We are now 10 days since the last check was mailed and 4 days since the expiration of the bill, the prior the stimulus bill. The two sides remain at odds on whether to cut the jobless supplement or provide aid to financially strapped states and localities. Also, they are apart on how much money to allocate for controlling the virus and for food stamps and myriad other issues. But they have signaled progress in recent meetings. Trends in unemployment claims. Filings for weekly unemployment benefits rose for the first time in nearly 4 months in late July as some states rolled back reopening. Initial unemployment claims rose by a seasonally adjusted 109,000 to 1.422 million for the week ending July 18, halting what had been a steady descent from a peak of 6.9 million in late March. For the week ending July 25th, the increase was an additional 12,000, so claims rose to 1.434 million. The increase followed a period where claims had settled at around 1.3 million a week, well above the pre-pandemic record of 695,000 in the horrible recession of 1982. The most obvious metric from this week's report is that the employment trends are headed in the wrong direction and have been for weeks now. Drilling down into the data, it does appear that claims and benefits total suggest new layoffs are being offset by hiring and employers recalling workers, though at a slower pace than a few weeks ago. The impact on the hospitality industry, especially restaurants, has been acute. There are 660,000 restaurants in America. The industry, this is an interesting statistic, the industry is larger than the automobile and the airline industries combined. And they employ some of the lowest wage earners who can ill afford to miss a paycheck. It is this cohort that is a major factor in driving the unemployment numbers. And the wave of bankruptcies and brick and mortar retail adds to this pain, with many of the major names suffering in Chapter 11. And you probably are familiar with this. I mean, see, these are some iconic names. Brooks Brothers, one of my favorites, and many other really well-known. There's a company very few of us have ever heard of called NPC International. They operate 1,600 Wendy's and Pizza Huts. They are also in a Chapter 11 proceeding. Many other retailers have avoided Chapter 11, but are making steep cuts in existing locations. And by that I mean closing multiple locations in malls, shopping malls, and in downtown centers all over the United States and around the world. The COVID-19 pandemic clearly accelerated the demise of an already weakened industry assaulted by online shopping. Okay, this is just a quick graph to show you trends in unemployment claims. This can't come as any surprise to anybody. These are seasonally adjusted initial claims. Big spike here in April. And then these are not seasonally adjusted claims. And again, big spike here in April and into the month of May. And we're seeing a fall off here, certainly down from its peak, but well beyond the last record of 695,000 in 1982. The Fed has reacted quickly in mid-March, dropping the discount rate to effectively zero. This assures affordable credit, yet such credit is only available to the credit-worthy, which is an increasing concern as companies continue to falter with diminished revenues. In mid-July, home mortgages fell to their lowest in history ever. Recently, the average rate on a 30-year fixed mortgage fell to 2.98%, the lowest level in almost 50 years of record keeping. There's never been a lower rate than that. At the time, it was the third consecutive week and the seventh time this year that rates on America's most popular home loans have hit a fresh low. Since then, the rates have crept up slightly to 3.14% on the 30-year, but the 15-year fixed is holding at 2.75%. I can't emphasize more the importance of a 3% or sub 3% interest rate on home mortgages, because it is absolutely driving the new housing market, which has remained strong except for a couple of little hiccups in March and in April, it has remained strong throughout the entire pandemic and is, as we speak today, continuing to see very, very good traffic and sales. We have witnessed unprecedented intervention by the Federal Reserve, and Jerome Powell has committed to act on a variety of fronts to stabilize the U.S. and global economy. The Fed will continue to provide liquidity to the economy and will not stop until the underpinnings of the U.S. economic system show signs of permanent stability. You can expect interest rates to remain low for a very, very long time to come. I mean years, more than likely. Here is the 2019. As you can see, we hit almost 5% in 2019, and look at how interest rates have fallen as the economy did better. And then, of course, this is the big drop here, driven by Powell's action to cut interest rates to basically, or the Fed discount rate to zero. New housing, as I said, builder confidence in the market for new single-family homes rose by 14 points in July, up to a reading of 72 on the NAHB Wells Fargo Housing Market Index report, which is a mouthful, but a very important index. We watch it with a magnifying glass. This matches the solid pre-pandemic reading recorded in March before the COVID-19 outbreak began. The NAHB Wells Fargo HMI is derived from a monthly survey of builders that gauges sales expectations and traffic of prospective buyers as a measure of industry confidence. It's a great, great indicator. A score of over 50 in a given category signals that more builders view conditions as good than as poor. So you can see at 72, that basically means that it's 50% above the midpoint. So that's all very good news. All of the HMI's individual indices showed strong gains in July. The current sales conditions report rose by 16 points to 79, and sales expectations index rose 7 points to 75, and the prospective buyer traffic index rose 15 to 58. All of these individual indicators in the HMI, which is a great report easily available on the internet and a great way to follow the trend line in what's happening in new housing. Here is some of the detail here on the housing market index. I'll go through this quickly because I'm running a little heavy here. Existing U.S. home sales rose 20.7% in June over the prior month to a seasonally adjusted annual rate of 4.72 million, the biggest monthly increase on record going back to 1968. This was another shot in the arm for the overall housing economy. It appears buyers are shaking off high unemployment and a rising number of infections because of pent-up demand and are seizing on record low mortgage rates. That's the trend. Watch this and new home sales and starts as good indicators of consumer sentiment. Here's some overall construction indicators. The COVID-19 pandemic and resulting recession have wreaked havoc on U.S. building market. Commercial and multifamily starts were quite healthy during January and February, but stalled as the pandemic hit the nation in March. For the first 3 months of 2020, U.S. multifamily and commercial building starts were inched up 1% from the same period in 2019. And the commercial and multifamily group is comprised of office buildings, stores, hotels, commercial warehouses, commercial garages, and multifamily housing. Not included in that is all the rest. I won't read them all, but it's here. And by the way, you all can access this entire presentation, and it's yours to use as you please, either from us or from the association after today's session. This is a very, very difficult chart to read, so I would encourage you to read it in detail on construction starts and it's from our friends at Dodge Data and Analytics. It is the most up-to-the-minute information available on a by-market basis. And again, you can get a good look at it in the presentation after today's session. Wall Street, the stock indexes took a pounding in late March as the Dow Jones Industrial Average shed 10,960 points in a 6-week period from early February until late March. If anybody was sitting on a lot of cash, it was a great opportunity to buy. This was a drop of 37%, a complete panic by any definition. Since then, though, the resilience of the non-hospitality industry economy has allowed that index to recover all but 2,000 of those points before the second shoe dropped in early June. And the inconsistent and rocky reopenings around the country sparked a further sell-off, and the market retreated approximately another 750 points through yesterday. The other major indexes mirror these fluctuations. The Wall Street indexes reflect a fluid and efficient market and anticipate the future, and they are generally a solid indicator of the direction and economy. You know, Wall Street's a poor term because this is globally, these are fluid international markets. Stocks are traded all over the world, and these are very smart people who are looking into a looking glass, and the strength of our market indexes really speak to what the outlook looks like for our economy. You can see here we were down in late April. You can see the trend line back, or was this a time to buy stocks? You can see here that we hit the bottom on March 23rd at 18,591, and then we came back. I get my last one, but this number was about 24,000, 26,000 as of yesterday. Yes. Okay, here we are. That was 26,828, almost 27,000 yesterday. We'll run through this quickly. Same trend line on the S&P 500. You can see all the various points on the drop and then the subsequent recovery. And of course, NASDAQ all looks the same as well. Very important, private equity. Private equity is a big factor in moving our economy. The private equity industry entered the COVID-19 crisis with a mountain of dry powder. There's $2.5 trillion in total, over $800 billion of which was earmarked for buyouts. That's more than double what the industry had during the 2008 recession. And yet fundraising continues with large GPs out seeking record amounts of capital for new fund vehicles. This is a lot of liquidity that is going to get injected into our economy alongside the very positive efforts by the Fed. My conclusions are there are just too many unknowns to accurately estimate the extent of the economic recovery and construction as a subset. We encourage everyone to watch all of the metrics and indicators described here. They will serve as arrows pointing in the direction in which we are headed. Obvious sectors of the general economy, like the hospitality industry, which is restaurants, hotels, and airlines, will be long in recovering. But our view is that construction will, and I put this in parentheses, eventually, rebound strongly and will be a major force in repairing our battered economy. I wish I could tell you when. Most importantly, a rollout of the vaccine will be a strong rallying point for consumer sentiment, and that is when the economy will shift into overdrive. Pent-up demand will be enormous. I want you all to remember, you heard this from me, a year or 18 months or 2 years from now, you will not be able to get a hotel room at a resort. You will not be able to book an airline seat or a cruise ship stateroom because there's so much pent-up demand globally in money that's not being spent on leisure. You're going to find that we'll have a tremendous resurgence in the hospitality industry eventually. And I'm a big believer that pent-up demand will be enormous, and that affects not only hospitality, but construction and housing as well. So with that, I want to thank you, and I guess we can go into, Rocky, we can go into any questions that we may have, or certainly save them for the panel at the end.
Yes, Pierre, thank you so much. Outstanding information. It's exciting to know that there's so much positive optimism on the backside of this. Certainly uncertainty, how long a period of time that will take. But thank you so much. We have had some questions coming in, and we are going to reserve those for the end for a panel session. There was one question, Bob Thomas, that I saw asking about the slides and the material. I think, Pierre, you alluded to that. We will be making the materials available. There were some slides that discussed indicators and those things that would be very helpful to have. So please know to our attendees, we will be making this information available to you. Pierre, awesome. Thank you, and we'll look forward to the
Thank you very much, Rocky. And I just want to emphasize to everyone that you're welcome to share my presentation inside your companies with your colleagues and your customers, for that matter.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Okay,
Thank
so
you.
Let's move on to our next presenter, Jen Goodman. Jen Goodman is a writer and editor for Construction Dive, a daily online newsletter covering the commercial construction industry. Jennifer has more than 2 decades of experience writing about the U.S. building industry. She will tell us what changes we can expect in construction and how our businesses will be impacted going forward. Good to have you with us today, Jen.
Good morning to everyone. I wanted to start out just letting everyone know a little bit about my publication, Construction Dive. It's a daily newsletter that covers the commercial construction industry with a special focus on large projects that are $500 million and up, and the contractors and subcontractors that build these massive projects. As 2020 was beginning, the editorial team at Construction Dive were covering what we thought would be some of the biggest stories for the upcoming year. These included the 2020 presidential election, a potential election, and mergers and acquisitions that were in the works for some of the country's biggest contractors. Obviously, by mid-March, we could see that all of those stories would be eclipsed by the arrival of the coronavirus in the U.S. It's been 5 months since then, and during that span, the industry has faced sweeping changes that couldn't have been predicted at the start of the year. These changes include everything from new job site protocols for cleanliness and social distancing, rules about PPE use on the job site, a rise in remote work, and an increased reliance on construction technology. And that's what I plan to talk about. Construction industry. The historic changes that the industry is going through this year aren't temporary. Many of our sources have told us that they will remain in place even after the outbreak recedes. They say that the virus has upended many facets of the industry, and companies that try to return to a business-as-usual mentality will face a harsh new reality, as you can see here in the quote from Joe Natarelli at the Markham accounting firm. I know that you as suppliers of construction materials are facing the same challenges presented by COVID-19. More than anything, the virus put a spotlight on the importance of worker health and safety, and U.S. contractors have responded by implementing new job site policies. These are reinforced by state, local, and federal regulations that for a while brought a halt on construction work in many jurisdictions this spring. Some of these new practices include staggered shifts, employee temperature checks, top-to-bottom disinfections of job sites, tools, and machinery, hand washing stations, limits on elevator use, bans on carpooling, and mandatory mask and glove policy. For example, 2 large general contractors in Boston told us that they have made big changes to the way they approach construction work. They say their job sites and schedules have been drastically changed by these new procedures. Managers at Suffolk Construction told us they are staggering start times so that workers will be able to better adhere to social distancing guidelines. The company has also designated some stairways on site as one-way travel only and assigned workers to certain floors to reduce the chance that they will encounter each other. Suffolk has also created the position of COVID ambassador. The company has assigned these individuals so that the protocols meant to protect employees from exposure to the coronavirus are implemented and followed. The other Boston contractor, Shawmut Design and Construction, has its job site managers start each day with intensive pre-task planning with each trade about the day ahead. Everything is planned out in advance for maximum social distancing. Crews sketch out where they will be during the day so that they don't end up working too close to each other. If it is necessary that 2 people work closer than 6 feet, then crews need to fill out a form identifying their plan to carry out the task as safely as possible and what personal protective equipment will be necessary. One of the most important things they're telling their workers is to self-monitor and stay home if they are not feeling well. A thought echoed here by one of Suffolk's subcontractors. As job sites have evolved, technology is playing a big role in keeping workers safe and remote. For instance, Shawmut recently rolled out a new custom technology platform called Shawmut Vital. It allows workers and subcontractors to fill out a health form and self-certify health screenings daily. Each employee and sub scans a job-specific QR code prior to being allowed to enter the job site. If an employee is displaying symptoms or is at higher risk of contracting COVID-19 due to contact with someone who has symptoms, the system flags the worker and they are taken aside for further action. Shawmut has also implemented Fever, a device that uses artificial intelligence to detect elevated temperatures in groups of people to determine if any workers might have a fever without having to come into physical contact with the individual. In addition, Shawmut is piloting the use of wearable technology that buzzes whenever 2 workers come into too close contact. The coronavirus also brought major changes to construction firms' back offices, since the have shown that they can keep business operations running via remote work, relying on technology like video conferencing, emailing, and texting to stay in touch. Leaders of some of the country's largest general contracting firms have said they are pleased with the shift to telework since the pandemic started. The CEO of Los Angeles general contractor AECOM said during a recent earnings call that his company has seen increased productivity since employees started working from home. This greater emphasis on telework is causing many U.S. business leaders to think about making the practice permanent. A recent Gartner study found that 74% of American companies do at least 5% of their office workforce to permanently remote positions, and nearly a quarter of respondents said they will move at least 20% to permanently remote positions. according to a survey of the company's chief financial officers. The need for social distancing has also changed how contractors interact with project teams and customers. Companies have developed unique solutions to stay in touch. AECOM has launched an interactive web-based tool that allows clients to hold virtual public meetings, a crucial component in the process of creating public projects such as town halls, stadiums, and concert venues. The platform allows AECOM employees and customers to meet the public and impact and benefit from proposed projects without leaving their homes. In addition, in some areas of the country, building departments are implementing remote technology for inspection. For instance, when faced with a recent inspection delay on a project in Nashville, general contractor DPR submitted 360-degree photos and videos to the local fire marshal for a virtual inspection, allowing it to turn the project over on time. Obviously, these major changes on construction sites and in the back office are adding to the time it takes to complete projects. Experts have warned that days of fast-tracking a project may be over. Developers, contractors, suppliers, and subs need to consider these new time constraints when bidding out jobs to make sure the contract reflects a reasonable construction schedule.
And Jen, this is Kathleen. Sorry to interrupt. We're just hearing a little bit of kind of feedback. If you don't mind bringing your phone a bit closer for us, make sure we can hear you better.
How's that?
Okay, I think that sounds better. Thank you.
Okay, sorry. Another issue that's adding time to construction schedules is the fact that construction managers are also dealing with enhanced OSHA compliance complaints and an uptick in internal human resources. One of our sources attributed to the fact that there is tension everywhere these days, in the workforce, with crafts, and with subcontractors. Is that sounding okay? Good?
Thank you.
With the economic ramifications of the COVID-19 crisis still yet to be determined, the outbreak is affecting the owners and developers who are normally contractors' biggest clients. Some projects are being put on hold, while others have been canceled outright. The sectors that have been the most negatively impacted include hospitality, retail, and entertainment projects, as economists say these for the short term. We're already seeing some of these types of projects be put on hold or canceled. You can see a few examples here. Worth noting is the $9 billion in total that's been slashed from state departments of transportation, and the San Francisco airport expansion that's been put on hold, just one of many large airport projects that have been affected by the coronavirus. Despite the tough times for some sectors of commercial construction, other types of projects have gotten a boost during the crisis. As people were told to stay home this spring, these projects were deemed essential and transit and even some airport jobs. Although infrastructure projects are suffering as state DOT revenue declines, governors of some states, including Florida and Minnesota, have accelerated billions of dollars of transportation projects in an effort to lessen the economic fallout from the coronavirus and to take advantage of fewer vehicles on the road. Work at some major airports has been fast-tracked by officials who are using the downtime to accelerate work while fewer passengers are present. For instance, Seattle is speeding up a $340 million renovation project that includes plans for new dining spaces, office spaces. On the federal level, President Trump recently issued executive orders directing federal government agencies to waive environmental regulations and to take other actions necessary to streamline and expedite infrastructure projects in order to hasten economic recovery. The orders effectively do away with the responsibility for federal agencies to abide by regulations established by laws such as the National Environmental Policy Act, the Endangered Species Act, and the Clean Water Act in order to speed up public works projects. One thing is certain for the new projects that will be built in the near future. Many of them will contain more. Owners of buildings such as offices, retail outlets, restaurants, and apartments will be looking for new products and technologies that help make their properties safer and more marketable. It's part of what one Urban League Institute blogger called the tipping point in the rise and prominence of healthy buildings. An example of this trend is the $26 million Fulton East office building in Chicago, which was under construction when the pandemic hit. The developer, Parkside Realty, made changes that will help address COVID-19 health issues. The team foresees lessening demand for buildings filled with multiple companies on each floor, sharing bathrooms, corridors, and public areas. High-rise will become less desirable as well. The project team re-engineered the 90,000 square foot building for maximum social distancing, touch-free operation, and air and surface sanitation. These features include a hands-free elevator system, air and surface sanitation system that the company claims reduces up to 99% of viruses, bacteria, and mold on surfaces and in the air, touch-free key fob access and security system accessed by a mobile phone, non-shared 9 by 27 foot private outdoor balconies on each floor, an 8,000 square foot rooftop garden for individual use and small group meetings, and restroom walls painted with Sherwin-Williams paint shield that is said to kill staph, MRSA, E. coli, and other pathogens within 2 hours of exposure. So with all these historic changes in the industry, how has the coronavirus affected contractors' bottom line? How are they faring financially? So far, most of them seem to be holding tight, but are worried about the future. We've heard that more construction firms are becoming nervous about maintaining and building their backlog of work, and this is increasing competition, with many builders bidding on the same project. This means that construction costs have been driven lower as more firms compete for projects, which could lead contractors to feel a pinch in profits. Associated Builders and Contractors chief economist said that as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, the average construction firm leader is more concerned about demand for their services than any other consideration, including skilled worker shortages. This trend is consistent with the results of ABC's recent Construction Confidence Index, which reported that although construction firm executives expect sales to increase over the next 6 months, they also expect profit margins to become slimmer. As the COVID-19 pandemic stretches into its 5th month, disruptions at construction have lasted longer than many anticipated. Instead of the hope that the crisis would be over within a few months or at the end of summer at the latest, it's becoming clear to firm owners that the U.S. will be dealing with the novel coronavirus outbreak for a more prolonged period. Just last week, Construction Dive asked readers how much longer they expected COVID-19 to impact their companies. A combined 75% of readers who responded said they expect the impact of COVID-19 to last another year or more, with 19% anticipating disruptions for at least another 18 months. And just over 12% of readers expect the crisis to continue for another 2 years or longer. As we've seen, 2020 is turning out the way most of us thought it would. The real question now is, what will the rest of the year look like? There are a range of developments that we're following on Construction Dive that could help shape the rest of 2020. These include another CARES Act, such as the HEALS Act currently making its way through Congress. Potential infrastructure legislation that would provide a stimulus to construction and the economy in general. The presidential election, whether or not there's more surges and more project shutdowns, and of course the coronavirus vaccine. I invite you to sign up. We continue to explore the most challenging issues facing the industry this year and beyond. My contact info is here too. I'd love to hear your thoughts on what you feel are the most pressing issues facing the industry this year. Thank you again for inviting me to be a part of your mid-year educational event.
And thank you, Jen, for you've given us a lot to think about relative to our customers, the construction business, and what it looks like going forward. I was encouraged to see you speak of employee engagement. We had the opportunity yesterday to hear a couple of our members actually show some videos on different things they were doing relative to customer engagement. And I think that part's critical, and we just hope that the rest of the industry, and particular customers, realize the importance of that. But great information. I want to encourage everyone at this point to please go to your Q&A box, jot down those questions that you'd like to hear from Jen, and we'll address those at the end with the panel session. So our final speaker for this session is Tom Morris. Tom is one of the world's top public philosophers and pioneering business thinkers. He's the author of over 30 groundbreaking books and is a legendary speaker whose electrifying talks re-engage people around their deepest values and reignite their passion for work and life. He is now available by Zoom and other internet platforms to serve any business navigating our currently radical and disruptive change, bringing real wisdom to the challenge. Tom, the podium is yours.
Hey, thank you, Rocky. Hello, everybody. Good to be with you today. I sit here in Wilmington, North Carolina, where we're now having torrential downpour of rain and thunder and lightning you may hear in the background now and then. All the lights have sort of gone out. Looks like we're in the nighttime. We're going to talk about social changes coming up and the wisdom we have for success in challenging times. It's interesting because today's downpour wasn't even predicted, so far as I know, by the local weather station a few hours ago. And have you ever thought about the fact that the Weather Channel, why do they have a 10-day forecast if they can't get it right a day in advance? Maybe so it's by the time we get to day 10, we'll have totally forgotten what they said on day 1, and we won't hold them responsible for being wrong. Think about prediction. How can we predict? Pierre was very wise not to make a lot of predictions about our economy right now, and likewise Jen, not making too many predictions about what's going to be coming down the pike in the next months and years. It's very hard to predict the future. In fact, there was a book that came out a few years ago called Black Swan about the impossibility of predicting any of the big things that happen in the world. I mean, nobody predicted the breakup of the Soviet Union. Nobody knew the Berlin Wall was coming down. You know, it wasn't widely thought that there would be something like a 9/11. The big events, the big disruptors seem to always come to us by surprise. So that's why I like to be very careful about making any predictions. I want to share with you all this PowerPoint. A few days ago, I came across this New York Times headline from the year 2012. It said 12 reasons 2020, so predicted 8 years in advance, 12 reasons 2020 will be an awesome year. Now, the Times goes on to say, and this is a quote from their first sentence, "Get ready for the first complete synthetic human brain, moon mining, and much more. Maybe robotic moon bases, chips implanted in our brains, self-driving cars. Well, they got that one all right. And high-speed rail linking London to Beijing. According to a dazzling number of technology predictions that single out the year 2020, it's going to be one heck of a year. Well, they got that last part right, didn't they? I mean, this has been one heck of a year. But look at all the ways they got things wrong in their predictions. It's amazing to me. In October of 1999, I was called by a very enthusiastic intern at Fox News. And she said, we want you to join us in Times Square for New Year's Eve, the coming of the new year, the new century, the new millennium. We want you and a panel of experts to talk about all the great and amazing things that are going to happen after the year 2000. And I said, really? She said, yeah, we've already got together two panel members. They're both futurists. And they're predicting wild things that in the early decades of the 2000s, everybody's going to have their own personal robots. There'll be robots everywhere. And there'll be flying cars, this lady said. And she added, bizarrely, nobody's going to be having sex anymore. Well, I thought, well, that's at least one form of trouble people are not going to get in with robots and flying cars. But has any of that happened? I decided not to participate because they were saying such crazy things. Because as a philosopher who studies all of human history, I've come to realize that despite the often dramatic changes in our lives, there are some things that never change. And we're going to talk about both of those things in my short time together. What kind of things are we going to be facing in the coming weeks and months and years? And what kind of wisdom do we have to deal with that well? Well, it's a very interesting thing. In 500 BC, the philosopher Heraclitus once said, things are always changing. 500 BC, and in unpredictable ways. You know, what in the world would he say today? Probably something like, I told you so. Although Plato or Aristotle could equally be quoted with that one. You know, I wrote an essay a few months ago, and I started with the words, we live in challenging times. But then it occurred to me, so has everybody else in all of human history. It's not been a cakewalk. It's not been a stroll in the park. People have gone through all kinds of struggles and challenging surprises and disruptions throughout all of human history. The wisest people have left us some advice about how to deal with the challenges in our own time. And so that's part of what we're going to talk about in our session today. But first of all, let me draw your attention to something Pierre did that was very wise, and something Jen did that was very wise. They draw our attention to certain predictable patterns. You know, here's what's going on now. We can't necessarily say what's going to happen 6 weeks or 6 months or 6 years from now, but we can tell you what's been going on in the recent past and how things are trending right now. Sociologists have pointed out something very interesting about America. They've said that there's a cycle. They call it the half-century cycle, but it's literally every 40 to 60 years. It can be as short as 40 or as long as 60, or it could be in that sweet spot of the half-century. There's a time of domestic turmoil and trouble in our nation. And they give examples of this. They start with the American Revolution in the 1770s, and then 40 years beyond that, the War of 1812, which, you know, in 1814, Washington was being burned, and the White House it was just chaos. 1860s, the Civil War in the U.S., 1920s. You might say, wait a minute, that was the Jazz Age. A lot of great literature, well, it was Prohibition, and organized crime really got its start in this country. In the 1960s, you had the marches and the hippies and the boycotts and the Vietnam War and the reaction to that and the civil rights movement. There was so much going on. I remember all that. Now the 2020s, our pandemic and our social protests of our time. Now the interesting thing about this PowerPoint slide, this chart the sociologists give us, is that it was predictable that the 2020s would be a time of turmoil and trouble, right? But good things can come out of that. So I guess you look at this chart and you say, well, if we can hang in there until at least the 2030s, we're going to be all right. But we want to see some good things happen in our businesses and our lives before that, right? So we're going to have to think about what change is coming up soon in the things we are concerned about, in the things we do, the things we care about. Well, actually, there's predicted to be change coming up in many different areas. With respect to race and race relations, with respect to gender and gender relations, with respect to age, we live in a time of a greatly aging population. In fact, I heard a presentation on this not too long ago, where the expert was shocking everybody in the room about how quickly the aging population will need support services. It's a major change that's just beginning to happen. Of course, there are always changes in technology, and the predictions. I was reading predictions earlier this morning about huge changes in artificial intelligence coming up fairly soon. There's going to be changes, of course, like Jim was talking about, in our work, in our work protocols, in the way we do our work. This is a great example, right? For 30 years, I've flown all over the world giving speeches, and sometimes I was on 500 airplanes a year. That's not going on now. I do my work very differently. You do your work very differently, and that's going to continue to show patterns of change in travel. This has been addressed already as well by Pierre. There'll be changes in how we travel, how often we travel, why we travel. A lot of things we took for granted 6 months ago, 8 months ago, are going to be shifting. Our assumptions will be different, and our patterns. There'll be changes in weather, like we're seeing right now. I had the hurricane come through my front yard. Prior to when I moved to Wilmington, North Carolina, I don't think they'd had a hurricane in 20 years. In my first 8 years here, we had 10 come right to the front door. My wife says she wants a new wreath for the front door that looks like a bullseye. That's how it is at my house now. That's a big change. The Chamber of Commerce never said anything about that when we were thinking about moving here. In fact, it never occurred to me to ask why the river here is called the Cape Fear and why my neighborhood is actually called Landfall. Anyway, we're going to have changes in global affairs. We can already see that, right? A shifting of global alliances, a shifting of which countries are calling the shots around the world. Things are going to change, and they're already changing, but the changes will be accelerated. In politics, we've seen huge changes in politics just in the last couple of decades. We're going to see even more changes. And in our patterns of life, and in various ways, Pierre and Jen have both addressed that, right? Consumer confidence and the way we engage in buying things, the way we engage in using things, the way we search for entertainment or relaxation in our lives. There's still going to be patterns of life change coming up that are literally unpredictable at this point in human history, but we know they're on the way. Now, here's the good news. Regardless of what we face 6 weeks from now, 6 months from now, a year or two, or 6 years from now, we have some wisdom for success amid all the changes on the way. I've got my latest book, the book cover, in front of you here. It just came out a few months ago, and people are saying, well, you're some genius. You knew we were going to need this. No, I've worked on this book for 15 years. I wrote it 25 times. It had 5 different titles. You know the old saying, when life hands you lemons, make lemonade. I grew up hearing everybody say that, but nobody said how. So I decided to look back through all the tumultuous centuries of recorded human history and to find out what the wisest people did to deal with all the changes that came their way, especially the unpredictable changes. And I came up with some amazingly simple and powerful stuff. And in the book, Plato's Lemonade Stand, I talk about how to take life's lemons and turn them into lemonade. Now, we've been talking about resilience for a long time in the world of business, right? When something bad happens, bounce back. In the last 10 years, because of the really good work of Angela Duckworth at University of Pennsylvania, we've been talking about grit. When something bad happens, grit your teeth, soldier on, persevere, keep at it. And both those things are really important. Resilience is very important in life, and so is grit. But I've come to think there's something even beyond both those qualities. I call it alchemy, the power of radical transformation. I use a term that comes from ancient times, but it's the lemons to lemonade. Taking something difficult and not just bouncing back, not just soldiering on, but somehow squeezing it into something good. I mean, here's the good news. In all the bad times in my own life, they've opened doors to really great times. In fact, an elderly lady, Florida Scott Maxwell, wrote a book when she was, I think, 88 years old called The Measure of My Days. And she said, every bad thing that ever happened to me, the things I regretted, the things I hated at the time, have created in me the qualities I've come to admire the most. And she calls those qualities hardihood, a kind of strength, a kind of virtue. In fact, in the ancient world, there was a Roman philosopher named Seneca, and he said, no boxer ever enters the ring with confidence until he's been beaten black and blue, until he's felt his teeth rattle under the fist of his opponent, until he's tasted the dirt as the result of an onslaught. Then he knows what he can take, he knows what he can endure, he knows what he can survive. Then he can enter the next bout with true confidence. Now, another philosopher said something about difficulties at about the same time, a few years earlier than Seneca. Talking about the first century of our era, there was a guy named Epictetus who was a slave who was given his freedom, and he was an amazing philosopher. Epictetus said, I love this about dealing with difficulties. He said, suppose you wanted to become an Olympic wrestler, and let's suppose you have resources so you can hire the best wrestling coach there is. And so you hire the wrestling coach. What's he going to do? He's going to confront you with every obstacle, with every adversity, with every awful exercise. He's going to bring in opponents to fight you who are the strongest opponents he can fight. And you're going to say, why is he doing all this to me? And you're really going to know. He's trying to create in you agility, strength, and wisdom. And Epictetus says, what's going on in the world around us right now? You know, we're being prepared for a contest much more important than a wrestling match. We're being prepared for growth and development and to become our best and do our best in the world. What do we need? We need agility, we need strength, we need wisdom. And what's going to bring about that? Obstacles, difficulties, bad surprises, right? Terrible opponent. All the bad stuff that Florida Scott Maxwell said she'd come to realize created in her the real strength, the real hardihood that made her who she is. So how do we take the lemons of life that are coming our way? You know, we got a mountain of them already, but more to come, sure as anything. What do we do? I've come to realize there's something like an art of change that the philosophers have given to us. It's composed of three component arts, and we often find this in life, right? I mean, like think about tennis. There's an art of tennis. If you're a tennis player, right? It's composed of component arts. There's the art of the serve, the art of the forehand, the art of the backhand. Maybe you're not a tennis player, you're a golfer, right? So the art of golf is composed of certain component arts, all right? There's the art of the swing, there's the art of the wager, and maybe the art of the drink at the end of the round, right? What is it that we need to turn life's changes and unpredictable disruptions into lemonade, into something great? And the philosophers have taught me we need three arts. We need the art of self-control, we need the art of positive action, and we need the art of achievement. Now, this is interesting because the art of self-control, the Stoic philosophers, the two guys I just mentioned, Seneca and Epictetus, and also Marcus Aurelius. You want a really good book? The Meditations of Marcus Aurelius. He was emperor of Rome, and late at night he asked himself the question, what have I learned today? And he wrote down anything that he had learned during the day. Marcus believed that if you and I live life with eyes wide open, we can learn something every day. He also believed that if we don't write it down, we're going to forget it. So, you may want to try the same thing. Ask yourself in the evening, what have I learned today? And you may be surprised at the results. Well, Marcus did that, and his notes to himself have become the book, The Meditations of Marcus Aurelius, one of the best-selling books in all of human history. So when you get done reading my book, Plato's Lemonade Stand, get a copy of Marcus Aurelius, The Meditations. You're going to be shocked at how much you enjoy it. It's like he's a guy living down the street giving you the best advice you could possibly imagine. He said, the art of self-control requires a couple of things. You know, don't rush to judgment. Don't rush to judgment. In fact, let me put up a slide about it. The art of self-control has basically 3 requirements. First of all, when something happens that surprises you, don't be too quick to rush to judgment. Don't be too quick to say, well, this is awful, or even, this is great, this is terrific, this is the best thing ever. Appearances and realities are very different things, the Stoics taught us. And they learned that from Plato, who probably his most important distinction was appearance and reality. Most people are misled by appearances. Most people live lives of illusions. Plato said we need to get to the realities that lie behind surface appearances. Sometimes something can seem great, tremendous. I just won the lottery. What's happened to the mega millions lottery winners over time? In 5 years, most of them have no friends. They're divorced. They've lost everything, and they're actually broke. And this is crazy, right? And they were saying this is the greatest thing ever. Don't be too quick to say of anything this is the worst thing possible either, because there may be something to come of even a really challenging situation that puts you in a much better place. Value the right things. Often change shakes us up because we've got to the point in our lives where all we value is safety and comfort and predictability. Nothing wrong with those things at all. But other things are important in life as well, like growth, right? Like learning. And if we value growth and learning more, we pay our teachers a lot better, right? We need to value growth and learning in our own lives, like Florida Scott Maxwell. And so we see a difficulty coming. Most people do either of two things with a difficulty. They run from it or they battle against it. A few days ago, I was talking to a really great psychologist by Zoom, and it occurred to me in the middle of our conversation, I said, you know what, I was learning a lot of great books about the power of partnership, and I may say more about that in just a minute, but maybe we should partner up with our problems. Maybe we don't run from them. Maybe we don't do battle with them. Maybe we partner up from and ask ourselves the question, in this problem, what can I learn? What can I learn about myself? What can I learn about my business? What can I learn about the people around me? I wrote a book a few years ago about Steve Jobs, who was a very difficult person, but was very successful. And after reading a book I wrote on him called Socrates in Silicon Valley, a friend of mine from India said, you taught me something very important about problems in your book. And I said, what's that? He said, Steve Jobs picked problems as big as his spirit, as big as his talent. Most people try to just deal with little problems in their lives. Sometimes when we confront a really big problem, that's our chance to grow. And it ends up being our chance to do something great. Every tumultuous period in human history has led to something great. Isaac Newton had just gotten his degree and wanted to be a professor, but guess what? A plague, the Great Black Plague, stopped him from taking a teaching position. He had to leave town and go into a shelter at home, during which time he discovered gravity, the science of gravity. So amazing things can come out of difficult circumstances. Value the right things like growth and learning. Thirdly, use your imagination well. We often imagine the worst, right? Where if we use our imaginations well, Einstein once said imagination is more important than knowledge. Take charge of your imaginations. You take charge of your emotions and your attitudes, and sometimes you can become a lot more creative. I wrote a novel a few years ago in which an older character, it's set in Egypt in 1934. It's called The Oasis Within. An older character, Ali, says to his nephew, he says, have you ever seen a telescope? And the boy, they come from a little town in western Egypt, and the little boy says, well, you know, a guy came through the village with a telescope not too long ago, and I was amazed. I put it up to my eye, and it made faraway things look close, and it made little things look really big. And the old man said, yeah, when I was about your age, I had the same thing happen. A man actually gave me a telescope. And just like you, I looked through the little end, and it made everything look big and close and very daunting. And for some reason, I realized I could turn it around and look through the big end. And the boy says, well, I never did that. The old man says, well, when I looked through the big end, it shrank things down to size. It made close things look far away. And he said, I realized in that moment, we all have an emotional telescope in our hearts and minds. Whenever anything happens that we didn't see coming, we tend to look through the small end of the telescope like everybody else, and we blow it up bigger than it is. We make it closer and bigger and more impressive and more daunting and scarier. And he said, you know what? Often we just need to turn that telescope around, shrink things down to size, and realize you're big enough and powerful enough. You can deal with the situation. The boy says, well, boy, I never thought to do that. That sounds great. And then Ali says, the old man says, you know, once you get used to the power of perspective, once you've done that long enough, you can eventually just put the telescope down and look at things as they truly are and know that we're big enough and powerful enough to deal with anything that comes our way. Since I wrote that novel and I heard the conversation, it came to me like a movie in my head, I have had to say to myself 2 or 3 times, turn that telescope around, and it's been an amazing change in the emotions I was feeling. I recommend that. Now, second art, after the art of self-control, the art of positive action. I'll be quicker about this. Govern your attitude. You can be a pessimist or an optimist in life, and you can choose which to be. Now, nobody wants to be a naive optimist, but if you can become a realistic optimist, so you realistically see the burdens and see the difficulties and the obstacles you face, but you bring a confidence and a hope to the situation. You empower yourself to draw on your deepest resources. And with this self-control you've been mastering, right, through not rushing to judgment and valuing the right things, using your imagination well, you can now look for opportunities because you won't be shut down through confusion or panic or all the things people get balled up in negativity. They don't see the opportunity. The world is a kaleidoscope of new patterns all the time. There are always new opportunities. One path is blocked, another one opens up. Look for opportunities. And number 3, take initiative. The most successful people in human history have been people who took initiative. This is very, very important. Now, we heard from Pierre, one word for our economic outlook is uncertainty. Well, what is uncertainty? And most people, you ask most people, they're going to say there's something really scary, right? Because it's bad enough, all the dangers we face in the world. The ones that are even worse are the ones we can't see coming, we don't even know about. The unknown, right? The uncertain. Well, wait a minute. Let's talk. We just talked about using our imaginations well. What is uncertainty? Maybe the philosophers have suggested uncertainty is an open field of possibilities. When you don't know what's going to happen, it opens up possibilities for your own self-knowledge, your own self-understanding of the world, and maybe for some innovation and creativity you would not have engaged in had everything been all laid out and predictable and normal. So maybe the philosophers have said we should consider the possibility that uncertainty is a gift. That's a mind-blowing idea if there ever was one. Uncertainty is a gift. If used properly, you can do things you would never have done. Another famous psychologist said to me, I Zoom with these folks all the time, said to me not too long ago, he said, I believe we're entering the most creative 6 months in human history. I said, really? He said, yeah, people are going to have to be innovative to work their way through. COVID's not going to be easy, he said. It's not going to go away soon. And this guy was predicting it before anybody else really was seeing the second wave. He said, we're going to have to get really innovative, and some of the results are going to be pretty amazing in a positive direction. Now, there's a third art, right? Art of self-control, the art of positive action, the art of achievement. Very quickly, and this is going to be on my website, which I'll give you in just a minute. You'll be able to see this to review it. So you have to write as fast as you possibly can right now. For true success in times of change, we need 7 things. And you can get this from philosophers throughout history. We need a clear conception of what we want to see happen next. Goal setting is hardest in times of change, but it's the most important in times of change. We need a clear conception of what's the next step we're going to take, right? A clear conception of what we want to see happen, a clear goal. We need a strong confidence we can attain the goal. Most people look to their circumstances to give them confidence. Great athletes, great military leaders bring their confidence to their circumstances. Number 3, we need a focused concentration on what it's going to take, right? Break it down, divide and conquer. Number 4, a stubborn consistency in our actions. That doesn't mean doing things the same way we used to do them. You can't do that in times of change. It means making sure your actions are harmonious with your goals and your deepest values. Number 5, we need an emotional commitment to the importance of what we're doing. A lot of people are just exhausted now. The first couple months, pure adrenaline, and now they're just worn out, right? They're confused, they're exhausted. You got to get people's commitment back up, right? You guys build the world. You guys are doing such important work. In fact, did you know that the most ancient human epic, the Epic of Gilgamesh, is about a bad king who becomes a great king? How? He becomes a builder. I recommend to you, go get the Epic of Gilgamesh. I've read that book 15 times. It's an amazing story about partnership, about building, and about greatness. We need, number 6, a good character to guide us and keep us on proper course. Number 7, and character is so important, right? You people need to know they can trust you. You people need to know you care about them. And boy, people can do amazing things as teams, as partners, when good character is the foundation. Number 7, we need a capacity to enjoy the process along the way. You might say, oh, what? It's a minefield. It's a roller coaster. It's like we're supposed to enjoy this. Find things you can enjoy in even the most difficult times, and you mitigate those difficulties, and you position yourself to move forward in very positive ways. Now, so the art of self-control, the art of positive action, and you want those actions to lead to success, so the art of achievement. These 3 arts can help you and me in whatever changes and disruptions we confront. They've made a huge difference in my life. I hope they will in your own. Let me just mention to you that in these times of change and in this world of change, one thing that doesn't change is you guys can find me anytime at my website, tomvmorris.com. Let's keep philosophizing. Let's partner up in various ways to figure out the path forward. Partnership is one of the most important things in life. You know, the Iliad and the Odyssey? The Iliad's about partnership. The Odyssey's about purpose. If you've got those 2 things going in your life, you can make amazing stuff happen. There were 2 young kids at North Carolina State University. They met in class. They fell in love. She was a veterinary major. He was studying taxidermy. They ended up getting married, and they decided to go in business together. They hung out a sign here in Wilmington, North Carolina. I think it said Roberts Veterinary and Taxidermy. They even had a slogan, either way, you get your dog back. The art of success, the art of change. Partner up with people in new ways. You can do great things. Thanks, y'all, for having me with you today.
Tom, thank you so much for a very passionate, energizing presentation. We, for the attendees, we're running tight on our time, but Bob and the staff gave me the podium, and so we're probably going to go over a little bit because we have seen so much good information presented to us, and we have a number of questions that I want to make sure we get to. I do want to say Tom, thanks again so much. None of our presenters, nor myself, and I did a presentation yesterday at the town hall, and for those who saw that, the term that kind of became the central theme for my presentation yesterday was uncertainty. And so as I've been able to watch Pierre and Jen and Tom go through their presentations and touch on the fact that we really are in uncertain times, and for Tom to allow us to finish up with some extremely positive, optimistic ways to equip and empower ourselves with skills relative to uncertainty. So thanks to each of you for today. So in a moment we're going to we'll bring all of our panelists back, but before we do that, we have another sponsor video. I want to thank Bruce Blair and Rick Muth and Kevin Curtis. We asked them at the last minute to put together some COVID response videos, that things they were doing in their business. We were able to hear Bruce and Rick yesterday, and so now we'll let you hear Besser, Kevin Curtis, CEO at Besser.
COVID-19 really began to impact Besser Company in late March and early April as we were dealing with policies and constant executive changes from our governor. But in reality, we were dealing with genuine employee concerns like, should we be open? Are we an essential business? Will we have a safe workplace to come to work every day? And is it real? And so we dealt with those with a direct communications plan and began to work on some really aggressive safe work policies. And that was led by Candy Dombrowski, head of our HR department, and her team.
HR was immediately met with an unprecedented learning curve. Each day it seemed, from federal down to local agencies, we had new mandates and guidelines to apply and interpret. So we became busy very quickly with making sure that we had new policies in place that included daily health screenings, temperature checks, round-the-clock disinfecting, new training, new PPE requirements, and even out on the shop floor where we're impacting production every day with employee leave programs and screenings that sent employees home pretty regularly just to make sure that we were being as safe as possible. Also staggered shifts, anything we could do to make sure we were spreading out the workforce. So the good news is that management was very receptive and supportive, and we've been able to learn and move forward quickly with these processes in place. And our goal now is to continue going forward, making sure safety is at the priority, as it always had been, while also maintaining an effective operation.
Safety has always been paramount at Besser. The COVID crisis has intensified our focus and forever changed our definition of safety. We've learned a lot and have accepted current events as the new norm for the foreseeable future. As we look ahead, this situation has certainly brought a new challenge in regard to running a business. However, it has also forced us to look at things from a new perspective and evolve our company accordingly. Our team is continuously adapting to new processes. As an essential business serving a critical industry, we have a job to do, and that's an obligation we're proud to carry. We're fully committed and prepared to overcome these challenges and continue to deliver the premier level of equipment, training, and services the concrete products industry requires. Take care and be safe.
So thanks again for Besser, for Commercial Concrete and Orco, providing videos for this session. So I'd like to invite our panelists, if they would come back on the screen. We have about 4 or 5 minutes here that we can cover a few of the questions. So let me look. So we have a question that's probably would go to Pierre. With interest rates low, do we have reliable data for commercial construction loans that drive larger projects other than infrastructure? I'm thinking about schools, medical, multifamily.
The answer is yes, and I'll tell you who there are several sources that collect this data. Most of it is by subscription, so you have to pay for it, but some of it is also publicly available on the internet. One of the most reliable sources is Dodge Data and Analytics, a division of Dodge Data, obviously, and you're probably familiar with the FW Dodge reports, but Dodge Data takes a 5-year look out into the market, and they also track financing. The AGC, Associated General Contractors, also follows financing on construction projects. So there are some metrics, for example, like ADC loans, acquisition, development, and construction loans. Those are reported by a variety of the national associations, HEC being one. So if you just dig on the internet, you'll find it, and we use it. It's pretty reliable data. Our go-to is Dodge Data and Analytics. They do a great job for us.
Okay, thank you, Pierre. Another question from Rodney Lang. I believe this might be appropriate for Jen. How do you think the stay-at-home will affect the commercial building market?
Sure. So I think it already has. You know, as I talked about, you know, because employees are needing to stay home, so obviously the companies are relying much more on remote work, teleworking, Zoom calls, texting, phones, all of the above. And what we're hearing anecdotally is that it's actually working well. The company leaders have been really pleased with the amount of productivity that they've seen. You know, even during these stay-at-home orders, they've been able to keep working on their essential projects.
Okay, thank you, Jen. I'm looking through here, a couple more questions. Tom, I had one here for you, and I've got to find it. Let me go back. My apologies. I want to make sure we cover many.
Actually, Rocky, I think I saw that question you have in mind. Somebody was saying that some of the stuff I talked about seem to be things you do on an individual level. What about your people? What about how do you guide your people?
Yes.
And if that's the one you want me to take, then yeah.
Yes, sir.
I think every good leader is a good teacher. And use me as an excuse. Tell your people who your direct reports, the people who work most closely with you, say, we had this crazy session with a philosopher the other day, and he talked about the art of change. Let me share some ideas with y'all that were pretty interesting from what these great thinkers have come up with. Use me as an excuse to teach these things, you know, the art of self-control, the art of positive action, the art of achievement. And people will resonate with this right away, right? Because to the extent we've ever been successful in dealing with change in our lives, we've been sort of doing those things. But if you can make it really explicit, you help people do it even better. So whether you want to have a team meeting, whether you want to send out an email, you come to my website and find some resources for it. I encourage you, use these ideas and teach other people. You'll reignite the spark of hope and the spark of confidence, the can-do attitude that we all need right now.
All right, thank you, Tom. So I've been told by the back office that we do have a hard stop coming up. Panelists, you guys have been fantastic today. I know it takes a lot of work to put these together. Thank you so much for sharing with our industry. As other questions come in, we'll reach out and make sure that we get those answered. Just a couple more things on our agenda. I think there's another word from one of our sponsors. So Kathleen, I'll turn that over to you. Thanks, Pam. So thank you, Top Work America, again for your sponsorship. I think next we, as we leave the session, we want to be sure there's a poll that will come up for you, and we would certainly appreciate your feedback on this session. We do have a save the date for our Icon Expo in 2021, and we want you to be aware of that, February 12th, 13th in Nashville, Tennessee. So I believe, is there a video associated with this, Kathleen?
Discover what's new for the manufactured
Looks like there is. Thank you.
concrete, masonry, and hardscape industry during Icon Expo 2021. Set for February 12th and 13th, 2021 in Nashville, the Music City. Experience Nashville's unique cuisine, hidden gems, history, and of course, the honky-tonks of the city music calls home. Highlights include featured speaker Kenny Thomas, an award-winning country music artist and former United States Army Ranger. On the show floor, see the latest equipment, machinery, and services for concrete block, manufactured stone, hardscape, and retaining walls. Network with suppliers, industry innovators, and fellow producers. Find new opportunities to grow your business and educate your whole team with hands-on training sessions, seminars, and lightning talks. Mark your calendar for February 12th and 13th, 2021. Remember, this exclusive show for the concrete, masonry, and hardscape industry only happens every 3 years. Icon
So that finishes our session today. I want to thank everyone for attending. Thank you to our panelists. Everyone enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.